It was a brisk, overcast afternoon in Crestwood, a city where old-world charm blended seamlessly with modern vibrancy. The cobblestone streets buzzed with life, but beneath the surface, deep-rooted tensions occasionally flared. Grace Marshall, an accomplished woman in her early 30s, had just stepped out of a bookstore, clutching a novel and a takeaway cup of herbal tea. Grace, married to Adrian Marshall, the city's chief of police, lived a quiet life despite her connection to one of Crestwood's most influential figures. She valued her independence and moments like these, strolling the streets on her own terms, away from the spotlight. As she approached her car parked a short distance away, two uniformed officers, Officer Jacobs and Officer Reeves, exited their patrol vehicle. Their eyes quickly locked onto Grace, their expressions shifting from casual to tense. Grace noticed the change immediately, her stomach tightening in anticipation. "Excuse me, ma'am," Officer Jacobs called out as he approached, his tone sharp and formal. Grace paused, a mix of confusion and concern washing over her. "Yes, officer, is something wrong?" Jacobs exchanged a glance with Reeves before replying, "We've had reports of suspicious activity in this area. Can we ask where you're coming from?" Grace raised an eyebrow, gesturing back toward the bookstore. "I just bought a book. Is there a problem?" Reeves crossed his arms and said flatly, "We're going to need to search you." Grace's confusion turned to indignation. "Search me on what grounds?" she asked, striving to maintain her composure. Jacob's tone hardened. "Are you refusing to comply?" "I'm not refusing," Grace said firmly. "I just want to know why you're stopping me." Without further explanation, Reeves grabbed her arm. "Turn around," he ordered, pulling out handcuffs. "Excuse me," Grace exclaimed, disbelief and anger lacing her voice. "This is completely unnecessary." Ignoring her protests, Reeves snapped the cuffs onto her wrists. Passers-by began to notice, their curious glances adding to Grace's humiliation. As Reeves began patting her down, Grace felt her dignity eroding with each passing second. She struggled to steady her voice as she said, "I want to call my husband." Jacobs smirked. "Go ahead. Let's see if he can do anything." With difficulty, Grace retrieved her phone and dialed Adrian. His calm but commanding voice answered on the first ring. "Grace, is everything all right?" She steadied herself. "Adrian, I'm being detained near Elm Street. Officers Jacobs and Reeves say I'm under suspicion for something, but they won't tell me why." There was a brief pause before Adrian replied, his voice carrying a quiet fury. "Stay where you are. I'm on my way." Minutes later, a sleek black car arrived, and Adrian Marshall stepped out, his uniform crisp and his expression stormy. His presence silenced the murmurs of onlookers as he approached the scene with measured strides. Jacobs and Reeves immediately recognized him, their confidence crumbling. "Chief Marshal," Jacobs stammered, standing rigidly. "We didn't realize." "That much is clear," Adrian interrupted, his voice low but cutting. "Explain yourselves. Why is my wife in handcuffs?" Reeves faltered. "We received reports of suspicious activity," she matched the description. Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Matched the description of what? Exactly did she resist? Did she threaten you?" "No, sir," Jacobs admitted, his voice barely audible. Adrian stepped closer, his voice icy. "Then what made her suspicious? Was it her skin color, her appearance, or were you simply abusing your authority?" Neither officer answered, their faces pale. Adrian pulled out his phone and made a call. "This is Chief Marshal." Officers Jacobs and Reeves are to be suspended immediately pending a full investigation by Internal Affairs. The officers' faces turned ashen as Internal Affairs arrived, escorting them to a squad car. The gathered crowd erupted into murmurs, many recording the scene on their phones. The moment had become a public spectacle, and Adrian seized the opportunity to address the bystanders. "Thank you for being here," Adrian began, his voice carrying authority and sincerity. "What happened today is unacceptable. This department is here to serve and protect, not to harass and humiliate. I promise you, there will be accountability." Applause rippled through the crowd, and a woman shouted, "Thank you, Chief Marshal." Over the following days, the incident became national news, sparking widespread outrage and a demand for reform. Adrian wasted no time, implementing mandatory bias training for all officers and creating a civilian oversight board to review complaints against the police. Grace, initially hesitant to step into the spotlight, joined community leaders in organizing forums to discuss policing and justice. "Change doesn't happen in isolation," she said during one event. "It requires all of us to hold each other accountable." Under Adrian's leadership, Crestwood's police department underwent a transformation. Officers were equipped with body cameras, and an anonymous tip line was established to report misconduct. The department's culture began to shift, and trust between the police and the community slowly rebuilt. Months later, at a community event celebrating the progress, Grace stood beside Adrian. Addressing the crowd, she said, "What happened to me was painful, but it shone a light on what needs to change. Together, we've started building a better future, one where respect and justice are not privileges but rights for everyone." The crowd erupted in applause, the city of Crestwood united in its determination to create lasting change. Grace and Adrian knew their work was far from over, but they also knew they had taken the first steps toward a fairer, more just city.